Blended Podcasts. Brought to you by Blended Audio.
What does a healthy, balanced lifestyle consist of? How should you eat? What exercise should you be doing? How many hours of sleep do we really need? Does too much water flush away all your vitamins? Should it be high carb, low fat, or high fat, low carb? The more research you do, the more confusing it gets, because there is so much information out there, and there are so many conflicting opinions. So how are we supposed to know? Stick around to explore the different approaches to health with us, physically, mentally, and emotionally, and let's try to figure out together what the heck being healthy really means. I am your host, Hazel Priscilla, and this is your weekly dose of Feed Me Honesty. A warm welcome to everybody tuning in today. As you know from the title, today's episode is for the ladies, but I'm sure there will also be a few male listeners clicking on this episode out of curiosity. So to those men, I just want to say, we did warn you. All jokes aside, however, this episode, although it is going to focus on helping women with their specific hormones and monthly cycles, the intention is definitely not to exclude our male listeners. This is actually for the men too, because when women struggle with their hormones and cycles, it can have a big effect on their relationships, especially with the men in their lives. Have you had that experience with ladies in your life?
That is 100%.
It's a very tricky thing to say. It's a very thin thread to walk on. Is that what you call it?
I'd probably even go with the show is more for males than what it is for the females.
I think my boyfriend is actually the sound engineer today, and he says the same. So I'm outnumbered.
Stay tuned. Key to a happy life.
I know I tend to personally get offended or defensive when my other half suggests that I'm only behaving a certain way because it's that time of the month. And I think it's because most of the time I actually know that it is
true.
It is true. It happens. It's not always. But 99.99999% of the time, it is true. So as a woman, I will be the first to admit that I have caught myself making different decisions or reacting different than I normally would the week before my period. So I have kind of made a deal with myself to not make any big decisions around that time because they tend to come from a more emotional or even insecure place. Anyway, having that time of the month kind of feeling is something that is present for almost 2 weeks out of every month. I had this discussion with my mother. So the week before your period, you feel, I want to use a bad word, but you feel terrible. Mm-hmm. During your period, it's more like you feel super uncomfortable and it's not ideal. So that's 2 weeks out of every month, which means that's half of your life. Think about it that way. Imagine having to deal with something for half of your life.
So think about your boyfriend that needs to deal with you for
I feel bad for both parties. But I think that is enough reason to want to find the best way to deal with it and to have the best possible experience we can
100%.
under the circumstances. So today, as you already heard, we have Dr. Junaid back in studio, who you all know by now. So please don't make me list all his qualifications and achievements again, because I always have to retake 5 times to get it right. So let's just call him our Eastern medicine man going forward, if that's okay with you, Dr. Junaid.
It definitely is.
Are you feeling offended about that, or is it okay?
No, I've been called way worse. That's good. That works. That works.
Something I'm very excited to announce is that Dr. Rawoot will, as of today, be heard on the show on a monthly basis. And since he will be a regular, he'll act more as a co-host and it won't necessarily be an interview like the listeners are used to. That's if I don't scare you off completely today after you were a little hesitant to agree, but I totally understand that.
No, I think it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
That's what you say now. We'll hear at the end. But anyway, Doctor, are you ready to roll with this?
I am.
Okay. So the first thing that I want to start with is something that you said to me. So how many years was it ago that I met you? Was it 2 years?
3 years, possibly.
Was it? Oh my goodness. Anyway, so I already told the listeners about me having to go see you because my back was like aching and whatever. But something you said to me, turns out back pain was also from emotional stress, and that was related to my period. So that's why you said to me that your period is not supposed to be painful. That's the only thing you basically said to me. And I was like, mind blown. How can you say this? Like, I totally understood it. It made sense to me. And I was like, yes. But why does no one think about it that way? Why do we just expect to feel terrible? To be like, okay, this is just womanhood. It's okay to suffer half of your life.
To be honest, I think it's because most women have it. So it just kind of becomes this thing that it's the norm. It's okay.
Because you talk to your friends and they're dealing with it too. So you're like, okay.
You know?
We're all going through it together.
But it really shouldn't be the case.
Why? Why do you say it shouldn't be painful? Because, you know, it's like you're going through something where there's like deterioration. Can I say that? Is that the word? Like stuff is breaking down. How can that not be painful?
So
I'm not challenging on this. I agree that it shouldn't be because that's my motto too. Your natural state is healthy, but I want to know why you say that.
Okay, so possibly look at a different system. When you eat normally, right, you eat, your food digests, your food is eliminated, right? For most people, that is a painless process. But for some other people, it's a really painful process because something is disrupted within that system. Menstruation is exactly the same. For the most part, if you are healthy, your hormones are in a good place, you're in a good place, no pain. But
so it's
the
like
disruption in the hormones are generally what causes...
Okay. So it's like anything where you're not thinking, oh, my blood should pump blood to my veins. My heart should pump. What did I say? My blood should
Your
pump.
blood should pump.
My heart should pump blood to my veins. That's like not something you think about. So it's the same with your period. It's something that should almost go unnoticed because you don't have to tell your body what to do. It already knows what to do to survive and to, you know. So I understand what you're trying to say.
That being said, though, a lady's body, especially through the menstrual cycle, is one of the most amazing things. It is such an intricate system that consists of kind of like 4 phases over a 30-day cycle, 28-day cycle. Absolutely amazing, including pregnancy, like a lady's body.
It's not something that we have to hate or be like sad about because it's the only way for life to move forward is for us to go to have this.
100%. Without that period, there is no life.
Like we wouldn't be here.
Exactly.
The men too. So
100%.
Just another like example that we're not excluding them. You wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that. Okay, so I want to talk about the pill now, and I don't know like how much you're allowed to talk about this or how much you feel comfortable talking about, but
so the pill. And it's kind of ironic. A lot of people go on the pill because they have dysmenorrhea, for example, which is really bad, painful menstruation. Like there's a lot of cramps, there's a lot of bloating, there's a lot of agitation that kind of goes with it.
For me, that's worse than feeling physical pain.
Yes.
I hate feeling annoyed or angry or sad,
or vulnerable.
Because when you're in pain, you're like, I can't take control of this. I'm feeling I'm in pain, or I can drink something for the pain or whatever. But when you're feeling agitated or sad or whatever, it's so hard to take control of that because you don't understand it and you feel so helpless and you like, what pill am I going to take for that?
No, 100%. It's actually quite scary. And I mean, there's something like PMS, which I mean is something that for the most part everyone knows kind of like what it is. PMS also has a relatively darker sister that kind of goes with it. So you get PMS, which is the one that most people have, and then there's something called PMDD, which is premenstrual dysphoric disorder.
I've never heard about that either.
it's actually on the increase. So, do you know, like most people, they become a little bit sad, they become down, they become a little bit angry. With PMDD, the cycle is relatively painful, but the emotional state that accompanies it, because the hormonal disruption it's so intense that the hormones drop below the level that it should be. And you find with PMDD, they have thoughts of like suicidal thoughts. They don't actually follow through with it, like with normal suicidal depression kind of thing. But those thoughts are there. They have nightmares. They have a lot of mental, I don't know if I should say issues around it, but there's a huge mental component to PMDD, and it is drastically on the increase.
And how long is that before your period? Is it only before your period, or when does that occur? And for a week, or how long?
Everyone is kind of different with the cycle, depending on, you're looking at probably, you could actually look at PMS probably from about 10 days, 10 to 12 days before your cycle.
I literally, 10 days, when I start feeling annoyed, I check literally 10 days before. I'm like, how can this be already? I just dealt with it now and it's coming back again.
Something that you mentioned, which is quite interesting, is that you checked. So you have the app, or you have something that tracks it, right?
I used to have it, but I was so bad with that app. But I'm a very good with just writing down the dates when it happens, and I just write down the dates and the time. And then whenever I need to track back to, because the thing is, I don't have any issues with my cycle. So I know ladies who bleed for too many days, or skip a few months, they need to track specific things. But for me, I just track when it starts, and then I know when to expect it again.
I'd actually say everyone should be tracking.
It's so cool that you get these apps though. They are wonderful. I've had one before, and I can totally say get it.
It is really, really important. You find you came in for neck and back pain, but that's part of the consult when you go in, because that gives us a huge indication of what is happening in the female's system, how her well-being is. Everything kind of leads that your physical well-being and your emotional well-being will be tied into your menstrual cycle. So for the guys also, really important, you get that on your phone as well, so that you know when your partner's feeling some kind of way. Know when to pick your battles.
When not to.
Know when to get to those chocolates. Know when to just kind of be quiet. Know when to run that bubble bath to get the flowers.
Shame, man. It feels so bad, but it's also not being on the other side of it. So, I think teamwork makes the dream work, and that 100%. We both need to be aware of what's going on.
If you think about it in the larger scheme of things, if you're having kids and stuff, I think it's a relatively small price to pay for the male, considering
definitely.
What the female
especially
needs to go through
shame when you have a teenage daughter in the house and a mother. And with women, is it true? Is it a myth, or is it true that women sync up?
It is actually true. I'm not entirely sure why, but it really is true.
At the office, when you're in an office environment, it happens. And then even when there's a teenage daughter or two sisters and a mother in the house, and they all sync up, that father, and even if there's a brother, they need to run away.
So a friend of mine works at a call center, and within his team, within his unit, there are about 14 people, of which 8 are female. And he's like, it's that time of the month where you can just see all of it, all the females in the group are just they're low, they're down, they're angry, they're nitpicking. Everything is wrong.
It's a real thing.
He'll come in the morning and be like, hello, it's not a good morning. Why are you saying that?
Why saying hello to me?
It's okay.
Okay, so I want to get back to the pill.
Yes.
I want to talk about that. What do you think there's a better alternative? Do you think stay away from it? Do you think there's different types of it? Do you think it's for a certain person?
Essentially, there are 2 types of predominant pills, which are your estrogen pills and your combined one, which is estrogen progesterone. Not ideal. You don't want something disrupting your hormones, especially if you are putting in artificial hormones. And then there's the other side of that as well. If you're looking at, before we even get into side effects, if you're looking at it from an ecological point of view, right? So it doesn't break down, it doesn't digest. So you're basically urinating it, it goes into the water. There's so many studies now about it actually being in your drinking water
what
and
the hell?
everything else.
And then you're consuming it again and it's still back in your body and in the male bodies.
Yes. That's also why there's a significant increase in male breast cancer,
Yeah,
in
okay.
andropause. Yeah,
Sure, I didn't know about this.
it's
So
big.
totally from the pill being taken, that's the only place that it got into the water. Is it through the pill, or is there other ways for it to happen too?
I'm assuming there are other ways,
Yeah.
but the article that I
That you
happened
read.
to look at was with regards to the OCP, the
And-
contraceptive pill.
Also, I'm not talking out of experience or anything. Like, I didn't study anything. I'm just asking, like, is it not maybe the same with, let's say, when you take a sleeping pill or whatever? Like, you can't sleep and you take a sleeping pill, you keep doing that. It kind of it numbs the pain or it gets you to sleep, but it doesn't ever treat the cause. Like, so the same thing where it's like, oh, now my cycle is regular, so I never dealt with my imbalance of hormones or whatever, because I'm just like, oh no, everything's fine now, until I stop using it, and then I still need to deal with what was
Exactly.
the problem in the first place.
Like, I have a lot of patients that come in, and that's one of the questions. Like, like sometimes they don't even answer this. Like, when I ask, are you on any chronic medication? No. And they kind of go on. And then I'm
Because you
like,
don't think of the pill. I would also not have said, I'm not
You
on the
know.
pill. And you gave me a high five when I said
Yeah.
I wasn't. But if someone asked me, are you on chronic medication? I was drinking the pill. I would say no. Because it doesn't feel
it's
like...
a chronic medication.
Yeah, but it is.
I mean, I have some patients that are now in their 30s, and you ask them, like, oh, okay, so, like, when did you start taking the pill?
Yeah.
13, 14. So,
Yo.
I mean, I have patients that have been on the pill longer than what they've been off the pill.
Show.
So now they want to come off the pill, late 30s, and they're like, okay, ready to
I'm
have
ready
a baby.
now.
Yes, let's do this. But it's the
So
moment you
is
come
that
off.
also true that if you drink it for I heard that 4 years, if you drink it for more than 4 years, it like starts becoming pregnant hard. Falling pregnant. Is that true?
It depends on your constitution initially before taking the tabs or the pill, and it depends on which pill you're taking, the concentration. There are a lot of factors to that as well. But essentially, hormonal regulation is really, really important, and not just from a fertility point of view. Your actual mental health and
Yes.
well-being
Yeah.
is largely dictated by your hormones.
Yes.
And so you're taking something to kind of regulate that, right? So maybe you're 13 or 14, you possibly have bad skin.
That's
For
what I wanted to
example.
say. That's why most ladies drink it, because they're like, oh, like everything's fine now, but if I go off it, my skin's bad. I'm like, then deal with your bad skin. Like, that's not a reason for me
But
to
you see,
stay.
that's again, it becomes the norm. It's
Yes.
part and parcel of hormonal issues. Oh, I get very bad PMS. And it's normal. It's completely normal to them. And like, but you shouldn't really be having bad
Yeah.
PMS at all.
Yeah.
And then we go through the sessions like, oh my God, I had like no cramps. I had such an easy cycle. I had like,
And
'cause
that
you're
feels
balanced.
like unnatural almost, or not normal.
100%.
Like, magic, what happened? But think about it, like, having dealt with that for so many years and then having one period all of a sudden out of the blue, that's like smooth sailing.
Yes.
It is hard to believe that, or like it changes your life.
You need to actually look at regulating your hormones. Like if you're taking it because you have dysmenorrhea or amenorrhea, for example. So the other side to that is a lot of people take it for amenorrhea, which is the absence of your cycle.
Oh.
So you can have primary and secondary amenorrhea. Primary amenorrhea is kind of where you've gone, you 16, 17, 18, you still haven't got in your cycle. A lot of people then need to take the pill to be able to induce their
Yeah.
cycle so that they can kind of start the...
Why does the body do that it doesn't start now? Is it because you're unhealthy? Is it because of trauma? Is it because of what?
Could be many different factors
I
again.
knew you were going to say that. Why did I even ask?
Could be a thyroid issue. It could be someone that is drastically overweight. Could be someone that is drastically underweight.
Also.
It could be a congenital deficiency of sort. Could be other chronic medication that they might be on as well.
Okay.
Like there's a link to epileptic medicine that also affects hormonal cycles.
I used to take epileptic medicine. I used to have epilepsy. Do you know that about me?
I do not.
For
Used
like-
to have it?
For like a year. And then I I should probably not say this on air, but I decided I'm not going to have epilepsy anymore. And I realized like when I feel this attack coming on, I get like all like nervous and anxious and whatever, and then I make it worse and then I get the panic attack.
Triggers.
I was just like, I am going to deal with that better, where like when I feel that coming up, and I had like my partner be like support me when I'm like, I feel it's coming on, distract me, like, and then we'll talk about something else and whatever, and it disappeared. I'd stopped taking the medication. I'm not saying stop taking your medication, but it disappeared because I just stopped like responding to it.
So how do you know that you had epilepsy in the first place? I
was like diagnosed by doctors, multiple doctors. But that was the thing also. The one person said I had this type. The one said narcolepsy. The other one said it was this. The other one said it was that. Then I got like, I shouldn't be telling the story during this show. But anyway, then I took like the pill for the epilepsy. Then that was too strong for me. Then I couldn't like stay awake for 2 or 3 days. Then they're like, oh, that's too strong for you, take less. Then when I took less, like the smaller dosage, then it wasn't enough to stop the epilepsy. Then they took my car away. They're like, this woman can't drive. And I was like, what?
Hectic.
Yeah, it was like 20, 21, 22 or something. So it was a very vulnerable stage to have that. But I didn't know that medication could also...
Epilepsy or diagnosis of epilepsy is also on the increase. Also have a lot of patients, male and female, that young, never had any episodes of anything. They might have had an issue at work or something that might have overwhelmed them, and they had an episode.
Yeah.
And because of that, they automatically go on the meds and they stay on the meds because of fear of that happening again.
Yeah.
But
didn't you also say that it's almost like not a trend, but it's common for ladies in their early 20s? I think you once said that to me. Do you not remember that?
When did I say it to you?
I don't know if you said that to me. I remember you saying like a lot of the ladies that you treat like early in their 20s or something have like it's a common age almost for that to occur.
Epilepsy?
Yeah. I might have it all wrong. But we should get back to the pill, I think.
Okay.
So the link to epilepsy was we were saying that the pill, drinking epilepsy pill can stop you from having a period. Is that true?
Might not necessarily stop you from having a period.
But it affects it.
It could stop it. It could increase your flow. It could cause breakthrough bleeding within your cycle as well.
Okay.
Dysregulation, because everyone's body is so different.
Yeah.
You got to look at what the actual hormones are doing. You got to look at your pituitary gland. You got to look at your thyroid gland. You got to look at the actual organs and how they're functioning. So many variables.
Yeah. So if you like are discouraging people from just going on the pill for no reason, or just like taking that as the first best like solution, what else should you be doing if you have a problem?
Kind of problem.
Like any problem that you would take the pill for, let's say a hormonal imbalance, like, or not inconsistent periods or bad skin or anything that's like hormonal related, because I feel like any lady hormonal issue that's like pill.
So I'm of the opinion, and this is just my opinion, that with the pill, right, if you're using it for anything else other than a contraceptive, there's definitely other ways that you can do it, from cupping therapy to acupuncture to herbal therapy, which works ridiculously well.
Herbal?
Chinese medicine for gynecological fertility issues works really, really well. Ayurvedic medication also works really, really well.
No side effects?
No, because we're not adding... So the medication, or even just with acupuncture, I'm not adding any hormones. We're not doing anything like that. We're getting your body to regulate itself.
So how does the acupuncture, is it because it's like with the blood flow and stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
So different phases require different things. Part of the cycle is we're looking at the balancing of yin and yang. We're also looking at increasing blood flow to certain areas. And that's actually how the acupuncture kind of works. Like, through the different phases, like for example, your ovulation phase, for example, your yin, or sorry, not your yin, your yang energy is actually starting to increase in that time. So you'll find that your body temperature, your basal metabolic, or your basal temperature is kind of increasing. That's one of the tests that they do to find out if they are ovulating. They check the temperature. That's because the yang energy is increasing at that time, because if you do get pregnant, you need a lot of energy to be able to
sustain a second life.
Yes, and for just the cell formation, I mean, you're going from 2 cells, 4 cells, 8 cells, really rapidly.
Quickly,
and that requires quite a bit of energy. When you go into the next phase, as the yang starts kind of waning down, yin starts going on the increase, and that's kind of where you end up with your slightly emotional feelings. You're slightly more introspective. You
insecure.
Through that period, you're actually a lot more intuitive as well.
Oh, that's good to know. So I decided I'm not making any big decisions during that time. But if you're saying now you might be more intuitive, might that then be a good time to make decisions or to trust yourself more?
So while you might be more intuitive and you might have a strong feeling towards something, the chatter that's going to be in your head, either convincing you or not convincing you to do it, is not a good idea.
Better to not.
Kind of use your intuition in that place to kind of build on this idea, and the moment you're through that phase, kind of
revisit it.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because the internal chatter that you'll have in that time period, it's horrendous. You're kind of be like, I should do this, no, I shouldn't do this. But that's right. No, but it's not right.
And it's even day to day. It's not like, this week versus next week. Sometimes the one day I'll feel this way, and literally the next day I'm like, completely changed my mind about something, feel completely different about it. I'm like, who is this person even?
It's scary.
It is. I think journaling might also be a good way to. I've never done. I think journaling is great, but I feel too lazy to do it.
Journaling is a phenomenal idea.
But the apps also kind of don't they have a little? I don't know if you've ever used tried one of the apps out, but don't they also have a little place for notes? How do you feel? How was your day? Stuff so that's kind of also like journaling.
Essentially, post-ovulation or your luteal phase is when you actually want to be journaling. Through this phase here, you are going into a more yin aspect, and this is actually where you tend to feel more, like I said earlier, introverted. Your premenstrual symptoms start, irritability, crying. But also take that as those are your body's clues to generally slow down through this time period.
Yeah.
Be a little bit more introspective, be a little bit more mindful. Do not do vigorous exercise. I
wanted to ask you about that, but is it good to do some exercise, or should you rather do as little as possible?
I generally go by how you physically feel, not mentally.
Okay.
Because sometimes you might be like, hey, okay, cool, I want to go for a run, and then you go for the run, but you pale already before because you lost so much blood and you were anemic, and you go for the run and you come back and you feel worse.
Yeah. I think that's a good thing for your general life, to make exercise decisions based on how you physically feel. Because I think, it's not just me thinking that's true, how these days we're you motivate yourself, stay motivated, push through the pain, all those gym quotes.
We don't listen to our
never
bodies.
Do. So that's actually I think that's a better way to do it, to say don't listen to your mind, because your mind's always going to tell you I can't be weak, you need to go, whatever.
But don't you think about it, it's kind of cool though, if you look at, you have a period for 1 week out of the month, right? And moms, ladies generally, they high energy for those 3 weeks, whether you're looking after the kids, whether you're being a soccer mom and you're working and you're doing all of these things, right? And you get 1 week where it's just telling you chill.
Yeah,
it's a period. It's called a period for a reason.
It's needed,
chill.
Yeah,
stop.
Yeah. Mom's night out, mom's night off, or whatever.
So maybe through that time period also you can move, if you're someone that needs to be physically active as something for stress modulation or anything like that, then maybe through that time period. Or even
as a profession, if you're an athlete or whatever.
Yeah.
Just take it slower.
It's funny that you're saying that though. A lot of female athletes lose their cycle.
Yeah, because
naturally, because of how much they are training.
Isn't it also because they have so little body fat? Because I heard, I don't know if this is true, I think as soon as a woman goes under 10% body fat, or it might even be more than that, then you lose your period. Is it related to the body fat, or is that a myth?
There's a lot of controversy over that because the research hasn't really been finalized.
Okay.
But for the most part, that is one thing to consider. It's also just the unbelievable taxation that you are putting on your system.
Yeah, that's already going through so much.
I mean, if you look at female powerlifters, for example, they're not necessarily with a lower
body fat percentage, yeah.
but they also, a lot of them don't have the cycles.
Okay.
And some of them have the opposite, where they actually like bleed for a really extended period of time. Lifting a lot of weights causes your chi, your body's energy, to actually sink down.
Okay.
And when that happens, your body can't actually hold up like the uterus and everything that's kind of like in that way it should be, because your body's weaker, and you tend to have breakthrough bleeding, or you have a much heavier flow.
But what I also just took from what you said previously about like mom's night off, like, you know, women need to be like on top of it 3 weeks out of the month. So having that excuse, shouldn't we then see it as a blessing to have this week where we literally have an excuse to just be like, I'm not coming out tonight, or I'm going to sleep a little more.
That's
I'm
actually what I tell a lot of my
food.
female patients, just to change the perspective. Because it's looked at this thing that's like, it's disrupting whatever I need to do. But the moment you come through that cycle, right, if you actually do it properly, like if you are resting, you're eating the proper foods, you're doing what you need to do, you're being mindful, you're not biting off anyone's head or anything like that. When it is done and you actually moving forward after your, I want to say cycle, but when you stop
knows
bleeding,
what you mean. Everyone knows.
You actually come out with a whole different perspective on things.
You feel
amazing. Good.
You feel so good. Yeah, that is like something I always look forward to. I'm like, next week I'm going to feel great. I know it already. I'm going to feel so motivated. I'm going to have so much energy. Yeah. So it kind of makes it worth it. But also that for me is also what makes it so hard, because going from super low to super high, like that's too big a jump to have like 2 weeks. I think.
But you understand, just the way that you said it now, going from super low to super high, there's already a problem. Because your body is regulating, it has a biofeedback system. So while the wine is doing something, it's kind of balancing that effect, and you're not supposed to have discomfort.
Yes.
On the odd occasion, you could feel like a little bit of pain. Like a lot of ladies would say something like, I can feel the egg is coming from this particular ovary. The cycle.
How you need to be very in tune with your body to feel that, don't you think? Or I've never felt anything.
And no, it's actually a common thing. Like ladies can actually feel like which side is maturing, and this is through the ovulation process. They could actually experience dull cramps, sharp or sudden pain on one side, predominantly on the lower abdomen.
Oh, okay. So that you mean, then you know, okay, this is the side
this
that
is where it's kind of happening. And then like the next month, okay, it's the other side now. Yeah.
It's like having a baby.
Yes.
Like, it moved, it kicked, it's lying here now.
I think the correct term, oddly enough, is Mittelschmerz.
What? That sounds like something out of Harry Potter to me. Like one of those little...
It's German, and it basically means middle pain. Because that's kind of where you're feeling it. That's a cute word.
I like it.
Right?
Say it again.
Mittelschmerz.
That's so cute. Okay, so I was wondering if we can maybe like quickly explain all the cycles, like this week 1, day 1 to 5, this is what happens. And then maybe you can touch on diet, because I'm sure there's like stuff that you can do, like you already said, like exercise less during this. So in every period you can give a little like some tips where you go like, this is the week you need to eat salad. This is the week you need to exercise hard. I'm just using silly examples, but I don't know if it's possible to like do it like that. Is it too?
Well, we're gonna need a good couple of shows for this. The menstrual cycle
10 shows
is
later.
really quite intense. But okay, so essentially, if you're looking at the first phase of your cycle, your menstruation, actual menstruation, where you start bleeding. So a lot of people also don't know that's actually the first part. Your cycle is calculated from the beginning when you start bleeding,
and not after.
All the way through until when you start bleeding again.
So that also feels a little unfair, because it's like 28 days after you started like bleeding, it's your next one, but then like the first 4 days is not after, it's still during, so it feels like it's too much, like so
take into account when you are bleeding, that is because it's the end of the last phase. So when you start bleeding, the new phase has already started, which is your follicular phase. So that already starts in day 1.
Because that's rebuilding then.
Yes.
While you're bleeding something. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, so day 1, the first day of your bleeding. Is that it?
That's your follicular phase.
Okay.
So that's kind of like your uterine lining is kind of being discharged from the body. Your pituitary gland begins making FSH, which is follicular stimulating hormone, and luteinizing hormone to help stimulate the growth of new follicles, which is basically like the eggs. So in Chinese medicine, we basically in that phase, we look at focusing on invigorating the flow of qi and blood.
Okay.
To ensure that the lining can fully slough off, which is kind of like breakdown.
Yeah.
You know.
So would you say then exercise is good in this period because you want to get blood flowing?
No.
So how do you?
So you're going to exercise, right?
Hydrate?
We want blood flowing to that particular area. You're going to exercise and you're taking blood away from the area. So the blood will be pumping to your muscles.
Sense.
So we don't want that at all. And interestingly enough, through this time period, right, eating cold foods, bad for you. Raw foods.
Yeah.
So like there's a huge trend to eating raw food.
Yes.
Like it's so healthy for you and everything else.
Best thing ever.
From a Chinese medicine perspective, raw is cold in terms of temperament.
Yeah.
And cold, so think of cold as being, so if you add cold to blood, it congeals, right? You can see it go jelly, like almost flowing. Immediately. Yeah. So the same thing occurs. We need flow.
That makes so much sense.
Yes.
That makes, I love it when something makes sense.
The spleen has a TNT function.
Yeah.
Which basically takes the food that we eat and transforms it into usable energy and then transports it to where it needs to be.
Okay.
So when we add cold in there, right? So your spleen loves to be warm and dry. So cold food, greasy food, not ideal because it's going to impede where the nutrient needs to go. And the spleen channel and the liver channel run through your abdomen, through the front of the body, especially through those particular areas. So we want to make sure that those are functioning really, really well. And just to touch on the liver channel, your liver is in charge of a lot of your hormonal regulation as well. So we want to make sure that your liver is A-okay. And I mean, by today's standards, the liver is one of the things that actually gets impeded the most.
Yeah.
And the liver, I mean, aside from the physical component, which is the drinking, the amount of pharmaceutics that we take, the amount of chemical exposure that we have from using your underarm and your perfumes to everything around you, it affects your liver because almost everything gets metabolized over there. So your liver is taking quite an impact. But the other side to that is the emotional component. So the liver is strongly affected by emotions, anger, irritability, resentment, depression, sometimes anxiety.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yes. And you find a lot of those are quite apparent when you have your cycle or getting there. So if you can regulate the flow of qi, energy and blood within those particular organs. I mean, other organs play a huge role as well, especially the kidneys, but those two particular organs, you're already on your way to something good.
So how do you do that? Like eat warmer foods, not eat raw foods? Like not eat salads or what? Like eat a hearty soup maybe? Like a vegetable soup?
Soups are good, stews are good. Casseroles
nothing greasy,
are good.
Nothing cold.
No, you want to do like root vegetables, whole grains are good in that time. So you also want to take into account that through this process or at this phase of your cycle, a lot of your energy is focused inward. So there tends to be more dreaming, sometimes nightmares, but predominantly more dreaming. If there is nightmares, it's also giving an indication that your liver energy is a little bit stagnated.
Okay.
So through this time period, you want to increase rest. You might even want to spend time alone or with your loved ones. You will get highly irritated spending time with people that you don't really want to be in their company or whatever.
The tolerance is very low. Like other times of the month you can pretend and be polite, but...
Exactly. Acupuncture works really well at regulating this particular phase of the cycle. Herbs work really well as well.
What kind of herbs? Are there specific herbs? So you don't want to give away all your tips? Is that the thing?
No. We look at
Does it need to
formulas
be
more than single herbs
Okay.
because of the complexity of the.
That makes total
like, I
sense.
can't be like, hey, okay, cool. So
Take
take
like
black
2 mint
cohosh, it's gonna
leaves
do
and
this.
mix
So
it
do
with. Yeah.
you have to look at everything.
I understand.
Yeah, and a lot of the times when you say something like, so this happens or this particular herb works really well in this phase, ladies go out, they buy it,
Yeah,
and they drown
true.
themselves in that.
Yeah,
And like, oh
and
no,
then
this didn't work, but you might have had other things that kind of go with it. So rather see a practitioner first, wherever it might be, and get a proper assessment of what it
Good
is that you
balance
need.
of all the
Yes.
right. Okay.
Because sometimes you might be taking something, but it's the wrong hormone that is actually.
Yeah, because your body is different. It's not.
Yes.
It's not a one size fits all thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why Chinese medicine is winning at gynecology and fertility
Yeah,
and the
'cause it
menstrual
treats-
stuff. Because you might come in, you can come in, your sister can come in, and you'll get two completely different formulas, different acupuncture points for very similar type of conditions.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool.
I love that.
There's no
I
one
love
size
that.
fits all.
I love individuality.
Everything is kind of tailored.
Yeah. And people love being like, I'm unique. I'm special. So you are. Like if you want to feel special, go get like a treatment that's just for you and just for your body and feel good about how unique your treatment is.
Exactly.
So how long does the first cycle last?
Okay, so that is dependent on your
Is it
own
supposed to
bodily
be
constitution. It could be anywhere from 3 or 4 days, depending on your age and where you are, to up to 10 days.
7. Oh, 10.
Up to.
I'm so glad I'm not one of those, like, touch wood. That's a long time.
I mean, I had a patient that was bleeding, functionally bleeding, for about 18 days
Oh my goodness.
out of the cycle, and it was
Is
a 28-day cycle.
Is that very bad for your health to lose so much
you're
blood?
losing huge
Too
amounts of blood. You
much,
become fragile emotionally. You become weak. You can't sleep. You become angsty. It's not
Did
good.
you sort her out? Is she okay now?
She is.
Because
She
we
is
all
very
feel
much
for that
okay.
lady.
So, coupled with that, right, was a large dietary component as well. So people don't really look at this, but fish, for example, a lot of people eat sushi, and in abundance because sushis are like, wow.
Buffet.
Some people that might have a problem with clotting, vitamin K, for example. Eating tons of fish close to your cycle causes excess bleeding or breakthrough bleeding as well. And it's like heavy flow because the oils in there actually thin the blood. That's how omegas also work as a great anti-inflammatory and for pain.
It's so interesting.
Similar premise.
Okay.
So yeah, like I said, the phase can go normally could go up to 10 days, but pathologically it could go longer.
But what's the like most common?
Average.
Like, is it 4 days? 5 days?
About 5 days. So for most people, or most ladies, day one is kind of like a medium flow kind of thing. It's like, okay,
it's not bang, I'm here. It's just
day
like,
2,
hello.
day 3, heavy flow.
Yeah.
Day 4 kind of starts weaning. Day 5, spotting. Day 6, maybe a little bit of spotting as well. What I do want to tell them at home listening, if you do have an app and you are making notes, right, one of the things to kind of be looking at also is the color.
Yeah. I saw that on the
and
app.
clots. Are there a lot of clots? Are there little clots? Could you feel the clots coming out? Was it painful? All really important things to kind of note down.
Yeah. And what are the apps that you know of? I can't remember. I just remember I was a donkey. You could choose different animals, and I chose a donkey, and then that didn't last very long. I deleted the app because I needed space for something else.
Oh, I have no idea.
I have a worst example, but what's the names? I feel like I should know the names of good apps. But anyway, you'll find it. Just like my flow, my period, my time, something. You'll find it.
You can actually just go into your app store.
Yeah, Play Store.
And you can just go like Period Tracker.
Okay, and then they'll throw out all the...
Yeah, you'll get a whole list
like
of
the
options.
5 stars, take the one with the
Look
biggest
at the reviews,
rating.
always read the reviews. To get to the second phase, which is now the follicular phase, which we said also kind of starts in the menstrual cycle. It starts at day 1, which is that little bit, but it starts at day 1, right?
Okay.
Because that's...
The second phase starts at day 1. So that's phase 1 and phase 2 both?
Okay, let me try and re-explain
Sorry,
this. So phase 1 is when
trying to
you're
understand.
bleeding, right? But phase 2 starts on day 1 of your bleeding. Remember, like I said, your actual bleeding is because of the part before that.
Yes.
So your FSH is being stimulated by your pituitary gland on day 1 of your bleeding, right? About 5 or 6 days after the bleeding, which is the end, roughly, of your cycle. We enter into the follicular phase. So you can look at follicular phase, kind of carries you through pre-ovulation, just kind of before that. This is basically where the follicle becomes dominant. Here the body begins to produce more and more estrogen. This basically causes the uterine lining to kind of thicken and the cervical fluid to kind of like increase for motility. The nice thing about this is it's kind of like it's prepping the uterine lining as this like little nest. So when the egg comes, it's like this
that
really cool place to kind of like,
cute.
you know?
Yeah, that is really cute to know.
So from a Chinese medicine perspective, the focus here is on building yin, which corresponds to, again, blood and tissue in the uterine lining. There is also a yang aspect in the growth of the dominant follicle. So you're never going to have just one. There's always that counterbalance, like I said. So your yin is increasing, but yang is also there just to kind of keep it in check so it doesn't go super high and super low, like you mentioned earlier. So, through this phase, I'd say women tend to feel a little bit more outgoing. You tend to feel a bit more happy. You have increased creativity in this phase.
That's
because your estrogen levels are increasing. You are think estrogen, think femininity. That female goddess kind of vibe. This is what's happening.
So if you're in a creative like industry or job, this is the time to start drawing your sketches or whatever.
So this time of the month is actually best for your vigorous exercise. And like you said, it's a good time for new projects, being extroverted, and it's a good time to have intercourse.
Yeah, is that when you're most fertile or not? Is it the week after?
Getting there. So that's the start of it. So that's kind of like, okay, the egg's maturing, the egg's coming down, the uterus lining's kind of getting primed for this now. We can start trying to fall pregnant. Okay. Yes. So I'm going to say something.
Say it.
A lot of people use this period as a time of or a kind of contraceptive as well, because you can't fall period.
They think they can't fall pregnant?
Yeah.
But you can.
Most people don't fall pregnant in this period, but you can actually fall pregnant.
But don't take chances, or that if you don't want to fall pregnant. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, don't take the chances. But I'm just kind of putting it out there that people do use this as a means of contraception as well, because they know that the uterus is still being lined or being primed, for the egg.
Okay.
So yeah, through this process also, you want to be looking at doing a lot more protein-rich foods so that you can build your yin in your blood. Things like your beans, fish, eggs.
It's so funny how just the previous week, fish was the worst thing you could eat for yourself. And now I love this actually, because you're like, I am a vegan, or I am a vegetarian, or I'm a raw this. But you can be different things, different times of the month, depending on what
I'm going to touch on that you mentioned now, and this is going to be a highly controversial statement or unpopular opinion. But vegans, vegetarians, so many of them have problems with their menstrual cycle.
Yeah, I do that, but I'm not strict. When I feel my body is asking for it, then I'm like, okay, I'll give it to you. But I also watched, I shouldn't have watched this. It always happens with vegans. If you watch a documentary, they flippin' make you not be able to ever eat meat. So I watched this. It's actually a quite cool documentary to watch on Netflix called Game Changers. Have you watched that?
No, I haven't.
So that's about vegan athletes. It's actually more about athleticism. How do you say that word?
Athleticism.
Yeah. So it's about that actually, and then like the science behind how can you increase your performance when there's nothing like more exercise you can do, or when you've reached your limit, and like then so then they really like talk to a lot of like pro athletes, like weights people who are like running, people who are weightlifting, all kinds of different things, and they showed why vegan diets, plant-based diets are so good for them. And they had blood samples on there showing like how clear your blood is after a plant-based meal, and then how what's the word? Like you can't see through your blood.
Yeah.
It looks like you can see the fat or whatever in the blood. So
interesting.
Yeah. Watch that and then we can have a conversation about it again. Because I was like vegan, vegetarian, then I was like flexitarian, and then I watched that and then I was like...
No, I have no problem with vegetarians or like following that kind of line, but you needed...
make informed decisions with protein and stuff.
A lot of people that are vegan, vegetarian, they eat a lot of raw food because they think that the two go hand in hand, right? And like we mentioned earlier, how it affects your cycle. And a lot of them lose a lot of weight, they lose a lot of iron, they become anemic. There's B12 deficiency, pernicious anemia, megaloblastic anemia, which all kind of are kind of caused by this kind of diet.
Yeah. I think with any diet, you need to make informed decisions. So before I went vegan, I don't actually want to call myself that or vegetarian. I did months of research. And not only one type of, like, I checked out everything. I knew I was going to have to take a B12 supplement. I knew I was going to have to do this, or I was going to need that, or I was going to whatever. So I kind of went into it doing, knowing where I'm going to get my protein, knowing I'm still getting enough of this, getting enough of that. And I didn't feel terrible or get sick or anything because I kind of made it responsible, and I didn't make a move like this. I kind of introduced my body to different things, but I'm different because I never liked the taste of meat. I don't like the texture and I don't like the taste. The only thing I like is ribs. The only reason I ever ate meat before was because my dad was like, you need to eat meat because it's good for you and you need protein, and I always forced it down almost. And then when the vegan thing started, I'm like, I don't have to force meat down anymore. Yay me. But other people love meat and they're like, shucks, I need to cut this thing out that I love so much. How am I going to do it?
I think there's a slight genetic component to this as well. Again,
and your blood type or not? Is that a whole different discussion? Episode 3.5.
Yeah, something like that. But I think genetics do play quite a huge part in it as well. Like Caucasians, white people, generally meat eaters. Think Scandinavians, think all of that, where they kind of living off high fat, animal fat diets. And they thrive like that. They actually do really, really well. They don't have the hypertension and cholesterol and any of the other things that some of us have now with more modern lifestyles.
Yeah.
And then you look at Indians, for example, vegetarians.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's like one of the most populated countries that you get.
Yeah.
So clearly the menstrual cycles and everything seem to be working A-okay. With Indian cuisine, with the vegetarian dishes, a lot of them are cooked and they use a lot of spice.
Yes.
Spice.
So warm.
Spice are kind of part of herbal therapies.
Yes, because there's ginger in, there's turmeric in, you're getting all these things in naturally.
It is invigorating, it is good.
Yeah.
So I have no problem with people being vegans, right? But if you are doing that to the point where you're actually breaking your body down, you're actually feeling lethargic, you're not feeling good, you're not doing any of these things, you're not listening to your body and you're actually doing your body a disservice.
Yeah.
I'm not saying stop being that.
Yeah.
But try and adjust the way that you look at it.
Yeah.
Like if
maybe
you know, okay,
raw.
Your hands are turning blue, you're going more pale, you're going yellow, right? So a large indicator, like you'll see a lot of vegans, they tend to become yellowish tinges.
Is that the liver? Isn't it like, because I know when people drink too much and they get like whatever, like alcohol poisoning, or they go yellow. Am I right?
The yellow that you're talking about is kind of like jaundice.
Different yellow.
Yeah, that's from Billy Rubin. What I'm talking about is not yellow, it's actually called sallow.
Oh.
It's where the skin is slightly yellow tinged or even orange tinged. And that's generally because the spleen has become so cold.
Sure.
As you start heating that up, you'll see that starts changing.
It changes. Okay. So in the second phase that we were just talking about, you said up your protein a little bit more?
Yes.
And what else?
So,
I feel like we drifted off a little bit now.
You just want to be looking at warming.
Still warming, same as the previous week.
You generally want to be doing warming.
Is that the whole month?
Your body, I mean, if you think about it, right, your tummy is the hottest part in your body. It's the hottest organ, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever taken something like metal, for example, that's really, really hot, and you put something, or you put it in like cold water, and you'll see how it like changes its shape. Immediately it loses its form because of how cold it is, how shocking it is.
Yeah.
The same thing applies to your tummy. Your tummy is
I want to shock. So no ice cream anymore.
Ice cream is bad.
Yeah, don't say
ice cream
that.
ice cream. So I told you in the beginning part, right? Your spleen likes to be warm and dry.
And
Ice
that's
cream
wet
is cold
and
greasy. So no.
And what about like adding ice to your cold drinks and stuff like that?
No.
All those things bad.
No, you want to be drinking
Room temperature
or warm.
Yeah.
On
And
the
then you
odd
don't get brain
occasion-
freeze, so that's okay.
I mean, that's also telling you, hey,
Yeah.
entirely too cold.
Exactly. What is brain freeze? It's your body saying no.
Yeah, exactly that.
And your teeth ache too.
Yes. The other thing that you might want to do as well, in the second phase, is to increase your minerals.
Okay.
Start increasing your magnesium, your calcium, potassium, boron. It will just help your body recover what was lost through the bleeding process and help aid for what's about to come. So the next part is the phase 3 is ovulation. So in this phase, your luteinizing hormone is surging, which kind of triggers the release of the egg from the follicle. The fertile cervical mucus sometimes think of it as kind of almost like an egg whitey kind of consistency.
Yeah.
You might actually have that coming through.
In your blood.
Some people look at it as like maybe like breakthrough bleeding, or it's a kind of discharge. But that also gives you an indication that, you're ovulating or you're about to ovulate.
So that's a good sign. It's not something you need to be cautious of or be like, oh, it's not good.
No,
It's good.
It's a good thing.
Normal.
Yeah. So just on that note as well, and this is why it's also really important to track your cycle.
Okay.
So a lot of ladies through this period could also have breakthrough bleeding, like a little bit spots of bleeding, and then they think that they've had their cycle.
Oh.
And remember I told you this, like a lot of people consider this semi-safe period after the cycle.
Yeah.
So they maybe have breakthrough bleeding for 2-3 days, just like little spots. Okay, I had my cycle's finished, safe zone.
Yeah.
But it's really not. This is the part where you're actually like so primed to have a baby.
The third phase is if you are trying to fall pregnant, then this is the part where you should be trying. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay.
But it's a cycle. So in order to get to phase 3 and to be adequate, you got to take care in phase 1 and 2.
Yes, okay.
Because it's kind of like a domino effect. If you putting in crappy stuff in the beginning, or you're treating yourself kind of crappy and thinking, okay, ovulation phase, I'm just going to like readjust everything. Everything happens a phase or 2 before. So when you're in that phase, it's kind of the foundation you placed earlier.
Okay, that makes sense. And that's actually also cool because what it also means is every month you have a clean slate. You can try again. You can do your best to have a better period and a healthier period this month than
100%.
Challenge yourself.
Yeah.
This month I'm going to have the best period of my life.
Yeah, you should.
I'm like, when I walk out of this room, that's me this month. I'm going to be like...
Download my app. I'm going to look at everything. We look at my diet.
I'm going to come get some herbs from you.
Excellent.
My dealer.
So just to kind of like reiterate, through this phase, your yin energy is kind of at its peak, and your yang energy is slowly starting to rise now.
Oh.
So this is when your body goes from yin dominance to yang. So this is kind of like, so ovulation is when your body will kind of like, where you'll fall pregnant. The yang energy that's starting to peak is when it will actually turn the fertilized egg, the zygote, into the embryo. That's where so much energy is required.
Okay.
So through this period, you want to be doing a lot of like lighter foods, quinoa, warm salads, soups, broths, lighter foods. Yeah. Like you don't want to be eating like a
I actually
200
feel
gram
it too. You
steak
don't
or
feel
whatever
that
in
hungry.
No, you don't.
I do get weeks where I'm not hungry at all. I'm still eating because I need to. I'm not forced in feeding myself. I'm just like eating.
Yeah.
But I'm not as hungry as I was a week before. Or
yes. Yeah. So
So listen to that.
Yeah.
When you're not hungry, you don't force yourself to eat.
Yeah, but your body's so smart.
Yeah.
So through this time period, right? It's actually really, really cool. So as the yang energy starts increasing, so does your testosterone level in females. Testosterone level goes slightly up, which increases your libido.
Yeah.
So your body's already telling, and you can see how dynamic the system is. This is the part where you're most fertile.
Fertile, yeah.
And as your testosterone's going up, your libido is increasing, and it's like, hey,
I love that.
make a baby.
How that's
baby
like
time.
all these little signs are there.
Yes.
And
So yang is kind of heading up in that area. So again, lighter foods, like I said, soups, those kinds of things. Avoid in this period. Avoid raw foods.
Totally.
Completely avoid raw foods.
Especially if you're want to fall pregnant, is that, am I right? Okay.
Yes. Especially for that. Even if you're doing IVF, if you're doing like fertility.
What do you call that? Invertro. What? What's IVF? What's the proper name for it? The longer name for IVF.
In vitro utilization.
Okay. Yeah. I just wanted to sound smart, but then I realized I don't actually know what it is. So, yeah. Now I'm sounding dumb.
There's also, yeah.
We learn.
No, it happens.
Yeah.
I mean, you're more used to seeing IVF.
Yeah.
You're not used to kind of seeing the whole
But
term.
in vitro, no, I already forgot. Doesn't matter.
IVF.
It doesn't matter that much. Moving on.
Yeah. IVF is really, really expensive. And if you don't want to be wasting your money, cut out the raw foods. Like, really,
Yeah.
cut out raw foods.
Okay.
You want your constitution to be warm. Like a bun in the oven, you don't want to be putting cool things in. You want your oven to be warm so it can bake the bun. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes so much sense.
So again, avoid the raw foods, and you want to be doing more cooked foods. Here you can do whole grains, proteins such as chicken, more so than a plant-based protein. Chicken is really good in this time period.
Okay.
And cooked beets.
We cooked beets.
Beets.
I love beet. And it's such a pretty color.
That being said, again, because we live in this world where it's like cooked beets, yes, I'm gonna go have a ton of them.
Yeah.
Like if you're
moderately.
juicing beets, right? So juicing, even though it's raw, some of them are fine because of the spice that you might add, and you'll find that beets are
beets.
yeah, like beetroot, for example. You have beetroot, right?
Yeah.
And you have you go to Kauai and you have one of their beet juices or something. Do you see how you kind of your body starts feeling warmer? You feel like you want to perspire.
Yeah.
It's the nitric oxide in there.
Okay.
Which is really, really good.
So, are you saying you can't have too much of the beet?
Yes. So if you're juicing, right, you're not taking in more than 125 mils. If you're eating it as like you've boiled it up and you're eating it, and again, boiled, not raw beets. Juicing, you can juice the raw ones.
That's okay.
It's fine, but not more than 125 mils.
Okay.
If you're cooking, not more than 3.
Okay.
3 small to medium beets, nothing more than
and
that.
that's satisfying. That's like a good portion size anyway.
Yeah, but like I said, people here, it's something that's good.
Yeah.
Got to do this in abundance. Got to be excessive about this.
Whole plate of beet.
Yeah, no, we don't. We really don't want that.
And then are we at phase 4 already or not?
We could be at phase 4. Yes, we are.
We're pushing a little bit for time at the moment, so I'm just letting you know.
This is going to be a long one. This is a long question.
I knew this is what, but we can always have a part 2. I think for
maybe
now.
What we should possibly consider is maybe once this goes out and it goes live, possibly have like a question section.
That's
so
a
if
good.
people
My
have
one friend
questions
actually
on this,
suggested that.
Do that,
like,
and we'll answer the questions for them.
I think that's a very good idea, and then it'll be a different thing for us to do as well.
Very much.
Then we'll be sure we're asking the right questions.
Yes,
what
and I'm
you
not
really
just
want to know, and it's not just
talking. So phase 4, luteal phase, aka post-ovulation. So this is it's kind of where your body begins to secrete progesterone, which changes the uterine lining. It causes your body temperature to be consistently higher. This is where the egg starts traveling down your fallopian tube into the uterus. If the egg has been fertilized, implantation will take place, right?
Okay.
But if it doesn't,
it breaks down.
Yeah, and then you kind of go like, okay, your estrogen, progesterone levels start dropping off again, and you start heading into your menstrual cycle where you actually start
And this
bleeding.
is this the phase we have PMS where you feel your worst and you have all these cravings? And
Yes, because now you have gone from
High
peak yin,
to-
you're going now to yang, and then you're going back into that again. So this phase here, you might also have, again, slight increase in temperature because yang is going to be quite high here because, again, we need that energy
you need the
to kind of create the zygote embryo.
So there's a common
baby.
thread, like there's a theme that we can take away home. Like we need to stay warm
Yes.
and we need to eat warm foods, like all throughout the month.
And just like the one that I mentioned to you before that, so where yin was in peak, yang was still there, which provided like a little bit of the testosterone. So now, even though that yang is high, yin is still kind of there, right? Because now we're going into the next phase again. So just to kind of give you an idea, your yin energy, right, is kind of working to get you pregnant. But if you are not, right, your uterine lining is going to slowly
Fading,
start
yeah.
be kind of like shredding, slothing away.
Yeah.
This is kind of where your period will start to begin. But it's in that process where there was no fertilization of the egg up until the time that you bleed is when your PMS is essentially
Yeah.
starting, because now the breakdown
And
process
that's why it
has
can be
started.
like 10 days or
Yes.
something.
Very much so. And oddly enough, right, I mean, just a side fact to this. So women get pregnant a lot. Like, you don't realize, like, even if you're not on contraceptives or anything like that, through your cycle with intercourse, you can actually be pregnant, but you can get pregnant, but you might not be in a particular place to hold that that embryo in place. Your body will get rid of it and digest it as per normal, not in terms of like a normal miscarriage kind of thing, but it's before it actually gets into that phase. But yeah, there's
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that.
when your body is strong enough to hold it, when everything is in place, you'll kind of keep it there.
Okay.
But ladies
so
do actually get...
if you really want to fall pregnant, the best thing that you can do is make sure your oven is hot and
Yes.
healthy and all
Very
those
much
and your moods.
so. You want to do lots of warming foods. But just like shortly through this process now, just to kind of end
Wrap
off
that
this
section off.
yeah. That's what I mentioned earlier. You will be more introverted. You will be kind of more intuitive now going through this phase, because this is the one that's heading into this is your PMS.
Yes.
So you'll be more irritable, you'll start crying easily, you'll be easily angered. Everything your partner's going to do is just the wrong thing. He doesn't know me.
There's
Been
no,
together for
there's
so
no
long, and
right
you know?
answer.
Yeah,
Like, it
it's just-
doesn't matter what you say, it's wrong.
Yeah. Be very wary in this period, because this is kind of where you sow those seeds. So even though you know it's something that is fleeting and that your partner's not really like that, you cannot always take back your words and your
Yeah,
actions
that
that
is
you
true.
use.
Yeah.
And I mean, while your partner might understand, okay, it's just this particular phase, you've kind of planted that seed.
Yeah.
It's like,
And you shouldn't use it as an excuse as well. Like, it is real and it's something that's hard, but it shouldn't be an excuse to be the worst version of yourself and be like, say what you want, be mean to everyone, bite everyone's heads off. It's not.
no. Because even though you're going to apologize afterwards, it's still there. It's like, I mean, you throw a stone into a pond, it makes all those ripples and it's really, really cool.
Yeah.
But when the ripples are gone, you think everything's okay. But that stone is
Because
forever
then you
part of the
feel
pond.
better the next week and then they still feel
You
bad.
know, because that stone is in that pond.
Yeah.
The ripples are gone, but
Yeah.
it is there.
It's there.
And, you know, it's males don't go through this, right?
Yeah.
So we are being empathetic to you, but we don't have anything to actually draw on as to why you are feeling this way, what's actually happening inside. So as much as they want to be kind of like, you know,
Helpful or
helpful,
whatever.
they're not always going to get it right. They're going to say the wrong thing. They're going to do the wrong thing.
And like I said, even if this is the right thing to say today, tomorrow that's the wrong thing to say. If this month this was the right thing to say, there's no like guide for men how to treat us this way, because we don't even know what we want you to say or what we want to hear. Or
And also, just as a little added thing, ladies, if you are using the app and you can see you going in through this phase, and you know that maybe your partner's someone that generally likes teasing you or like doing things like that, and you hate it in this time period, be a little bit proactive and be like, hey, so I'm heading into this phase now.
I totally do that. I'm just like, this week, try to tread lightly.
Yeah.
I mean it in the nicest way, but it's for your own good.
Yes, exactly that.
It's important to be open about it, I think. And I think it's also important to have it be teamwork. I need to do my best to be like, handle this the best way I can, and you need to handle me the best way that you can, so that if we both put in the effort, it's gonna just
100%.
100% with everything in like a relationship, but so much more with this.
But you see, the cycle doesn't count as part of the relationship.
Yeah.
Most people don't look at it as that, but
Yeah.
you don't realize how much problems that should come through that time period.
People get divorced over this. I kid you not. Like,
Yes.
it's worth talking about.
Yeah.
That's why I kind of almost forced you to do this, because I have friends in relationships where they're like, the relationship's hanging by a thread or this or that because just of this.
Awareness
Yeah.
is key.
Yeah.
Like, you be aware of your symptoms,
Yeah.
make your partner aware of what is happening as well. Then everyone's on the same
Yeah.
page.
I think
But
so.
I mean, he's gonna wake up and he's gonna be like, "Hey, do you know, like, like, do you want
Be
this for
caught
breakfast?"
off guard.
No, you know, I don't like that. And
Yeah.
I'm like, but yesterday you asked for
Yeah.
this. Today's a different day.
Yeah. So to beware, to be prepared.
Yes.
Be prepared. I think that's the best thing to
Exactly.
say. But I want to still talk to you about like women who struggle to fall pregnant and the whole psychological thing behind that and that story. But not going to touch on that today. We're way over time. So I'm going to ask you to do the outro for us. And
Can I add
Yes,
one extra
add
thing
one.
in? So, you know, earlier we spoke about the pill.
yes,
Aside from the pill being used for hormonal control, it's used as a form of contraception.
contraception, yes.
And I understand that. And I mean, it makes,
Yeah,
it makes
you
sense
don't
on
want
why
to have
they're
a baby
using
if you don't want to have a baby.
you know, different set of problems there.
Yeah.
The barrier method works. The most common, or one of the best, it's not going to be one that has, you know, like, it's going to be healthy for you, it just has the least amount of effects,
Yes.
is actually the IUD.
What is that? Is that the thing they plant in?
Intrauterine device, yeah.
What is it? Copper? Is that?
So you get two. So
Oh.
you get like the copper one,
Yeah.
and then you get something like the Mirena. The Mirena is actually hormonal control.
Okay.
So it actually has a hormonal component to it. The copper one doesn't.
Okay.
The copper one basically like irritates the lining a little bit, which prevents the actual sperm from fertilizing the egg.
Okay.
Creates like inflammation within that lining that secretes a substance that basically breaks down sperm so that you don't fall pregnant.
Okay.
But you'll still get your cycle, you'll still follow everything as per normal. My 2 cents is that even though that is not perfect,
Yeah.
it is the better of
It's
the
the
options.
best to not sit with 10 children and not
Yeah.
be able to raise them well.
I mean, you can say things like you can use condoms, you can use abstinence, you can use the interrupted method or whatever, but practically speaking, while this might not be the most ideal, it definitely
It's
is.
the best out of the options
Yeah.
that you have. I think that's a very responsible thing to have ended the show with, because it's important to say that if we're taking the pill away, you know, we don't want people to just have babies and say, well, you told us to stop using the pill. So on that very responsible note, I'm going to leave Dr. Junaid to do the outro for us today.
Okay, just bear with me. This is the first time I'm doing it, so hopefully I get it right. Do not forget that you can now find Feed Me Honesty on Instagram, so please go give our page a follow and join in on the conversation. Tune in again next week for another packed episode with the answers to all your health-related questions. Have a balanced week, and remember to be kind to yourself so that you can be kind to others too. Feed Me Honesty is a South African lifestyle podcast hosted by Hazel Priscilla
And Dr. Junaid Rawoot.
myself, yes, and produced with the generous assistance of Blended Podcast, brought to you by Blended Audio.
Bye.
Bye.